Texas fans, Sooner Nation, welcome to episode 59 of the Bevo Podcast, the only podcast exclusively dedicated to covering the greatest rivalry in college football, the University of Texas, the University of Oklahoma. I'm here with my man Kevin Miller. He's wearing his Back in Black Texas t-shirt. I am John Whitson. Kevin, I want to start off a little bit off the college football path. If I can do a humble brag about my daughter. Well, actually, both of my daughters won Player of the Year for their little golf tour that they do in the summer. So I'm very fired up about that. But my older one, this is more a story about my older daughter. She won Player of the Year, so I was happy for her. She got a nice trophy and everything, but she finished fourth in her tournament in the tour championship today, right? So I was like, hey, you know what? Pick your chin up. Like, you're Player of the Year. Like, you should be happy. She's like, no, Dad, I'm pissed. Like, I'm not happy. Like, I lost today. I didn't play my best. I lost. I'm not happy, right? And I was like, okay, I appreciate that. And then I get home and I jump on the Twitter or the X or whatever, and there is the women's national team dancing like they just won the Super Bowl after tying Portugal. Dude, for those who don't know, Portugal sucks. And they are freaking lucky to even advance in the World Cup. And these people are acting like they won the Super Bowl, while my kid over here who lost a golf tournament and still Player of the Year was pissed, and all she wanted to do was kick somebody's butt. These girls on the national team better wake up, Kevin. They better wake up or they are going to get beat down, because you can't tell me that the Swedish and the Swedes and the Germans and the Nederlanders and all these teams aren't coming out for them. What in the heck are they doing, dude? Like, stop.
I did not see this. I did not see the whole dancing thing, but I saw that goal that they could have. I mean, they got so lucky right off the inside of the post.
Well, that's what Carly Lloyd told. Carly Lloyd said, I don't know why they're dancing. The best player on the team was the goalpost, because they should have got beat. They should be at home right now.
Yeah, it's interesting with this team. It seems like, for whatever reason, they just don't seem like they're in sync at all. Yeah, and I know they got some injuries and they got players playing in different positions, but it just, I don't know. Watching this World Cup so far, it just doesn't look like they're in sync like they usually are.
Here's my commentary before we move on to college football about that is not the 23 best or 24 best soccer players in the United States. It's just not. The backups that they got, Megan Rapinoe is patched. She's old. She's past her prime. Kelly O'Hara's past her prime. I love Rose Lavelle, and she gives an energy, but she's not playing up to the best. I'm thinking Rose probably should still make the roster, but there's two or three others. They don't deserve to be on the roster. We are a country of women's soccer players. These are not our best 25. We're rolling out a less than team, and it's showing. It's that simple. It's showing.
Hey, I have this question real quick before we go on.
Sure. Yeah.
Is this team just struggling, or is the rest of the world kind of catching up? We had a really big head start when it comes to women's soccer.
This team is struggling. It's a historic run. No men's or women's team has ever won 3 World Cups in a row, right? So I get that. I can appreciate the difficulty with that. But it's kind of like watching an OU football game or a Texas football game when you struggle mightily against West Virginia, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's Portugal. Portugal isn't any good. Like, if Oklahoma's playing West Virginia next year, I mean, we lost to West Virginia. It's the same. We lost to West Virginia this year. If we don't beat West Virginia by 3 touchdowns, it's going to be like, what is happening?
Yeah. And maybe like that Army game you guys had. Remember that Army game with Kyler?
And, dude, if Kyler Murray and Kennedy Brooks would have come off the field dancing around and being all fired up about just beating Army, we would have all been mad. Like, it's just not. So these girls better get their you-know-what figured out, because the world is coming for them, and get some attitude like my daughter has. Get some red ass in you. You know what I mean? Be pissed off.
Absolutely.
Be pissed off that you just tied a terrible team. Don't be happy about that, because that's not the attitude you got to take into the playground. I mean, my daughter was mad, and she stayed mad, and I loved it, and I love her. She's great. Twitter pop quiz. Real quick, I'm going to give you 30 seconds, Kevin. This is a new segment. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to answer this question. Are you ready?
Yeah,
It relates to college football, or really all college sports. Okay, here we go. I'm going to start the clock when I'm done with the question. Name the 8 Power 5 schools without the city or state in their name.
Sheesh.
And go.
30 seconds?
Dude, I did this in like 15 seconds.
Okay, let's see. Wake Forest.
I think that's a town.
Is it? I thought it was in Winston-Salem.
I'm pretty sure that's a town.
Was that not on the list? Okay.
No, I will give you Wake Forest because I don't think I counted it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll give you
Rutgers.
Rutgers, check.
Okay, man. Any hints? Conference hints? Or anything?
There's 3. Oh,
BYU.
BYU. That is correct. That is correct. I don't know that there's going to be more than 8 then with BYU.
Okay. Okay. We got BYU.
Rutgers. There's 3 in the Big Ten alone, and you got 1.
3 in the. Okay, Purdue. One more in the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Northwestern,
of course.
Northwestern. Clemson from the ACC.
Okay, Clemson is not a town. I knew about Baylor. Okay.
Baylor, Stanford.
Where's Clemson at?
And Vanderbilt.
Clemson is not a town in South Carolina?
If Clemson is not a town, then Wake Forest is it.
Okay, I know because Wake Forest, I believe, is in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Let's look. Where is Clemson located at? Let's see. Let's check it out. Oh, this is softball. I don't know. We're going to come back to it. But there you go. I don't know. I thought it was a fun little quiz. What are you going to do?
You caught me off guard with that. Hey. All right, given the circumstances.
You and I were both on vacation last week. Recruiting news that occurred over our vacation. Taylor Tatum, DeMarco Murray with the win over USC, secures Taylor Tatum, running back out of Longview. Kevin, is he the best running back in the country?
He's arguably the best running back in the country. I think there are a few guys up there, but he's as good as anybody. It's a big-time pickup. I think he really fits the scheme that you guys run, too.
Now, let me ask you this. So, this is like our 3rd running back commit. When Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma, he said it was because he was not able to recruit the type of player that he needed to recruit to win at Oklahoma. And that was one of the reasons for leaving to USC.
Reportedly.
You have said that you believe he's going to get USC going, that they're going to continue to roll. Does something like this, is this a microcosm of the larger picture that he's not going to get them on a roll and that Oklahoma is on the upward swing? Or is this a one-off and DeMarco Murray just happened to beat Lincoln Riley for this one player?
Well, I think you have to take into consideration the distance factor too, right? Going from Longview to Norman is not like going from Longview to Los Angeles. But on a bigger scale, the difference between Lincoln Riley's recruiting at Oklahoma at USC so far and what Brent Venables is doing is the amount of high-impact defensive linemen that he's bringing in.
Absolutely.
Lincoln Riley and his staff were not able to bring in those 5-star guys. You got PJ Adebawore last year, and you've got some guys this year that you're in for. And if you were to get them all, I think it would honestly be one of the greatest defensive line recruiting hauls that we've ever seen. If you can get the likes of Williams, Winery, and Dominic McKinley and David Stone. Yeah, these are big-time players who can go anywhere in the country. If you get all of them, yeah, you're looking at a historically good defensive line class. I think it just has to do with really Venables, his connections in the Southeast. You know, he can go into the Southeast, you know, and battle the likes of LSU and Alabama and Georgia from these kids because he's coached there and he's been recruiting that area for the last decade when he was at Clemson.
I agree with you on that. You, of course, the nice guy that you are, you just refuse to bash Lincoln Riley. I just love it that DeMarco Murray got another win. I think that guy's a heck of a recruiter. It's going to be interesting to see how his career progresses, you know, and we see what happens with him. But in terms of recruiters, Well, I don't know, man. He
He's a
could be the
stud,
best.
man.
Yeah, he could be the best on our team, and maybe not though. If we get these defensive linemen, it's who's ever recruiting those guys. So
yeah, I mean Todd Bates, and then don't forget Emmett Jones at the wide receiver coach. This dude is a great recruiter as well. So,
in the last week, we also got Eugene Brooks, an inside offensive lineman out of California, 3-star, and then a local product from Westmore High School here in Oklahoma City, Michael Patterson McDonald at safety. We're ranked 15th right now. All indications are we're going to finish higher. And to your point, if some of those really, really big names hit, like they're trending to, it's a top 5 class, maybe even a top 3 class. And that's 2 of those in a row. Is Texas on that same trajectory?
You know, I think they are. The difference is, though, is the position. It's the defensive lineman that you guys are getting that I'm jealous of, right? You know, they got the Alex January kid, but he's a 3-star, more of a developmental guy out of Duncanville. They did pick up a 4-star defensive tackle, DeAndre Robinson, out of the Orlando area a couple weeks ago. I think he's going to be a really good player. But we'll see. They're still in it for Colin Simmons. He's a top edge rusher in the country, out of Duncanville as well. Also, Caden Durham, the guy you guys are trying to get, the other running back, also out of Duncanville High. I'm curious to see what he does, by the way, right? With you guys picking up a couple of running backs already. I know LSU was really, really in for him and Colin Simmons. So, but with Texas, man, I really hope they can get him. That's really where they're lacking, and that's at the edge position. We need pass rushers desperately. He's a guy that can come in and make an impact right away. So we're really hoping for him. Also, cornerback Kobe Black out of Waco, Texas. He's a borderline 5-star prospect. Texas is leading for him. I think, man, it's weird with recruiting now, especially going into the SEC. These battles for these top guys are going to come down to the wire, and it's just going to be, you know, just neck and neck until the very end, and a lot of schools are going to be heartbroken.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's encouraging to me for Oklahoma in these recruiting battles that we at least seem to be in play with NIL. Maybe we're not handing out bags of cash, or I don't know, maybe we are, but it doesn't seem to be hurt. What our collective at this point doesn't seem to be hurting us, right? Yeah. It doesn't seem to be a detriment. I'm sure Texas, they've unloaded the purse strings, but your recruiting hasn't necessarily changed under, you know what I mean? Under NIL, you seem to be still getting this. Like, I haven't noticed there's not like a school not getting the recruits that used to get recruits. I haven't noticed.
We talked about this, right? The top players are still going to the same schools. It might tip the scales when it comes to a few guys, right? We heard the rumors about the kid. Who was a kid who was everybody thought was going to OU? Was David Hicks Jr. last year? Yeah. The big defensive lineman, and everybody alleges that it was an NIL thing that made him choose A&M over Oklahoma. So, and with some players, that may be the difference, but overall, it's the same schools are still getting the top guys.
Speaking of the same schools, Kevin, let's take a look at the Big 12. This is our Big 12 preview episode. If we look at the media projections, and these were earlier in the year, kind of around the time when Big 12 Media Days came up, they predicted Texas to finish number 1, K-State number 2, OU number 3, Texas Tech 4, followed by TCU, Baylor, Oklahoma State, Central Florida, Kansas, ISU, BYU, Houston, Cincy, and West Virginia. Kevin, I think you think Texas is going to get to the Big 12 championship, right?
I do.
I think Oklahoma, with the schedule that they have, is going to get to the Big 12 championship. But for the purposes of this Big 12 preview, let's look outside of those 2 schools. Can you give me a couple schools that we need to keep an eye on that can challenge OU and Texas for the Big 12 title?
Okay, there are 2 schools. Actually, there's probably about 4, honestly.
I think so. That's why I'm going to pick 2, and you're going to pick 2, because I agree with you. I think there's 4 that stand out that can have a meaningful impact on who goes to play at Jerry's World.
Man, I really like Texas Tech. I like Texas
Dude, you're
Tech.
all over Texas Tech. You love that guy.
We talked about this before last season. I really like Joey McGuire. I mean, I liked him when he was a high school coach at Cedar Hill High School in the Dallas area, winning state championships, sending players to D1 schools all over the country, and then on to the NFL, right? Got started as an assistant at Baylor, did a really good job there, got the head job at Texas Tech. They're recruiting well. There's a lot of energy and momentum around that program right now.
But they're losing their best defensive player and maybe their best defensive player potentially of all time, right? I mean, that guy, what did he go in the
Tyree
draft?
Wilson's gone at top 5.
Yeah. Top 5. Yeah, I mean, he was fantastic. They're losing Reggie Pearson to Oklahoma, right? Their hard-hitting safety that just destroyed Jalen Hurts a couple times last year. So you're losing your top 2 defenders. That's always been the weak spot at Tech. Do they have enough on defense to kind of to contend like you're suggesting they might?
Look, it's tough when you lose a guy like that, right? Tyree Wilson and Reggie Pearson, but they do have 16 starters back, right? They got almost their entire offense back. They've got 2 talented quarterbacks, Tyler Shuck, who came from Oregon. He's battled injuries. They got the Baron Morton kid who looked really good when he's played too. So I think no matter who they end up choosing, they're going to be explosive on offense. They got a lot of receivers coming back. I think they were second in the Big 12 last year in offense, like 461 yards a game. And they bring most of that production back. What I also like about them is how aggressive they are on 4th down. I don't know if you watch when they played Texas. I think they converted like 7 4th downs against Texas last year. Kept that the Texas defense on the field. I think they ran 100 plays. And like I said, most of that production is coming back. And they got a lot of experience coming back on the defensive line despite losing a stud in Tyree Wilson. So I think they're going to be in the mix for the Big 12 championship game this year.
Well, when I look at their schedule, so I got their schedule pulled up here, right? When I look at their schedule, their second game is against Oregon. They host Oregon.
Yeah.
So we're going to know real quick what kind of team they are, because that's Dan Lanning's got those boys playing up there. So their other 2 games are against Wyoming and Tarleton State. I'm going to go through this real quick because I don't know. Did you do a win total that you predict for them?
I did not.
Okay,
I did
so
not.
Let's do this real quick. West Virginia.
Oh, win.
Houston.
Win.
Baylor.
Win.
K-State.
Loss.
BYU.
Win.
TCU.
Loss.
Kansas.
Win.
UCF.
Win.
And Texas.
Close loss. That game's going to be so tough for Texas.
So you've got them at 6-3. So, yeah, which is interesting. I mean, I'm not going to give this away or anything, but that's like the 2 schools that I've got. I think I picked them both at 6-3 as well, which is pretty interesting that's where they fell. My school, I'm going to start with K-State, right? I mean, this is we forget, right? With as well as TCU played and winning the first playoff game for the conference in the history of the playoff for the Big 12, it was K-State that actually won the Big 12 championship game, right? K-State is your reigning, defending Big 12 champions. They return Kleiman at coach. They return Will Howard, who started I don't know, half the games, maybe a little bit over half the games, but he's returning, looks really good. 13 returning starters. Much like Tech, they lose a really good defender in Enadine Uzoma. And, of course, they lose Deuce Vaughn, who was the mighty might. Yeah.
But they also lose their corner, Julius Brents, who was a really good player for them.
Real quick on Vaughn. Is Vaughn with the Cowboys?
He is. Drafted.
He's going to make that team, isn't he?
I believe he is. Yeah.
Dude, I'd love to see him play well. I really, really would. He was a fun player to watch. I mean, Oklahoma really kind of held him in check. He wasn't the one, but anyway, I really like Deuce Vaughn.
Yeah, it was really Adrian Martinez in the quarterback run game.
Replacing Vaughn, there's a Florida State transfer in Trayshawn Ward. They return, but here's the key returners. They return all 5 starters on their offensive line, including Cooper Beebe, who is a projected first rounder. So, dude, K-State is in a really nice spot. They have got 2 layups in their non-con plus Missouri. So, they got beat early by Tulane last year, and that kind of freaked everybody out about how good K-State was. But then we found out Tulane was a lot better than we thought they were.
Yeah, this is a really good team. Yeah.
This is a really good team. So, Missouri, though, will be their benchmark game, kind of see where they're at and see if they're as good as we think they are. But going through their schedule, they play Central Florida. I got as a win. Oklahoma State, a win. I got them losing at Tech. You had them winning. You had them winning at Tech, right? I actually have them losing at Tech.
Okay.
Win against TCU, win against Houston, loss against Texas, win at Baylor, and then they end with Kansas and Iowa State. These picks were made prior to the quarterback Deckers issue. So I'm going to actually switch these and say they lose to Kansas and beat Iowa State. That's with new information, which I think puts them at 6-3 in the conference. Again, kind of similar to the Texas Tech.
Yeah.
But if Oklahoma and Texas, if they stumble, I think they're going to be in prime position to slide right in there.
I completely agree. They're right there. If you look at how it was, I mean, I know Texas had the most first place votes, but if you look at the overall points, between first, second, and third, it was really close with Texas, K-State, and OU.
Yeah. Give me your third team, the third team that could sneak in place of Oklahoma or Texas.
Man, I got TCU, man. And
I don't think that's a bad pick. I don't think that's a bad pick.
They lost a lot, right? They lost a lot of players. Max Duggan, right, their leader, he's gone. Their stud running back, Kendre Miller, he's gone. He's with the Saints now. And, of course, their All-American receiver, Quentin Johnston, is gone. He's with the Chargers, first-round pick.
He was my favorite player on that team. He was my favorite player on that team. He was a stud. He was unbelievable.
Yeah. So you lose a lot, right? But I just feel like Chandler Morris, I really want to see what this kid can do. Recruited by Lincoln Riley to OU, right? And say what you will about Lincoln, but he can identify talented quarterbacks.
Sure.
Right? They got some transfers coming in, right? Trey Sanders is a former 5-star running back from Alabama. They got him in the portal. Couldn't really get on the field much for Alabama. So I'm curious to see, is he talented as we thought he was coming out of high school, or is he a bust? Or was he just buried behind some really good players at Bama? They also got JoJo Earl. He's a wide receiver transfer, also from Alabama. He's a Texas kid out of Aledo High School. He's a stud. Smaller guy, really good speed. He can also be a punt and kickoff returner for them. They got the kid Savion Williams back at receiver as well. He was a decent playmaker for them outside of Quentin Johnston. I'm looking for him to elevate his game this year. Also got Jared Wiley coming back, tight end, who's a transfer from Texas. This is going to be his second year, I believe, at TCU. So I think their offense will still be good. It's really just going to come down to what Chandler Morris can do on offense.
So here's my question about their offense, right? So last year, we've talked a little bit about this, but last year their offensive coordinator was Garrett Riley. They lose Riley and they get Kendall Riles. Is Riley the reason for their offense? Because if you look at like a Max Duggan, dude, Max Duggan was around forever. Nobody saw Max Duggan finishing second in the Heisman. And if he beats K-State, maybe winning the Heisman. Like,
can you believe that? Can you imagine that?
I don't think that was a crazy. If he'd have beat K-State and they were undefeated, he would have had a very good chance at beating Caleb Williams in the Heisman vote. Maybe not, but we didn't see that. So my question to you is, yes, I think Sonny Dykes is doing a really good job there. Yes, I think they're more talented than they've ever been. In terms of a program, like, replacing and rebuilding type stuff. But does the loss of the offensive coordinator, are we not paying enough attention to that?
Well, I'm definitely paying attention to it because Garrett Riley's a stud. I think he's going to do great things at Clemson. I'm curious to see what scheme they run. Does Kendall Browse bring in his dad's offense, basically what you guys are running at OU? Or does he kind of mix it up a bit with the talent that they have? I'm fascinated to see how it turns out. I just like the talent there. Also on defense, they bring back the quarterback killer, Johnny Hodges. Last year. Yeah.
Luckily for OU, we don't play him until the end of the season. So if they knock him out, maybe maybe it's the end of the year he gets knocked out because 5 games in a row they knocked out the starting quarterback for the opposing team.
I believe so. Yeah, and they had a lot of luck last year. Let's be real, right? They won some games. They probably should have that Baylor game with them running on the field goal team and kicking the field goal as time expired. Yeah. Just those kind of things went their way last year. Usually,
they beat a Michigan team, man. They beat a Michigan team that had beat Ohio State.
And they smacked Ohio State. They pushed Ohio State around.
Michigan did absolutely. And so, a lot of people, I think, and rightfully so. I mean, Georgia just destroyed them, but just Georgia was going to destroy anybody they played.
Yeah, it didn't matter who they were playing last year.
Anyway, okay, real quick, let's go through their schedule real fast. So, in their non-con, they have Colorado, Nicholls State, and SMU. That's got to be 3 wins. So,
I would think so, man. That Colorado game is fascinating, though.
All right, so we're going to go through
several reasons. Let's do it.
Well, real quick, you're absolutely right. First game of the season, 11 a.m., prime. It's a preview of Colorado joining the Big 12. We're going to get to see what a turnover of a roster of over 80% of the players does to a team. It'll be fascinating to see what happens in that game. I think TCU stomps them, though, right?
You would think so, right? I mean, they got some talent, but it's just they haven't gelled yet. I got TCU winning that game.
Real quick, we haven't had an episode since Michael Wilbon called Brent Venables a racist, right?
I don't think so.
Do you think? Let's get this out on the Boomer Bevo podcast right now. Does Kevin Miller think that Brent Venables is a racist for saying that he wouldn't have done it the same way Deion Sanders did it at Colorado? Is that racially motivated?
I don't think it is. I don't know Coach Venables, but I don't think it is. I do think it's weird, though, that he called out Deion for that. I mean, reason being is because the situations are different. Like if he would have had Colorado's roster at Oklahoma, you cannot win with those dudes. They were 1-11 last year?
Yeah, they were terrible. Yeah, Colorado's a joke.
Yeah, you can't have those. You can't win with those players. Come on. So I'm not mad. No, it's just weird that coaches usually don't call out other coaches, especially by name. You just don't see that.
You wonder if there's some recruiting battles they're in on, or is it possible they just don't like each other?
I just wonder how. Like, when would their paths have even crossed? That's what, he was at Jackson State, right? I mean,
but he was
go ahead.
Was he at Florida State? He was a Florida State guy, maybe. Some Clemson, Florida State. Yeah, no, I know. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I just think it's pretty. I'm just going to say this about Wilbon, who I've always liked on PTI and stuff. And I mean, I think I still like him. I don't think one comment's going to change it. But I think it's pretty weak that anytime we haven't somebody has a disagreement with somebody, it's like, oh well, he's doing it because he's black.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, Deion Sanders has been a lightning rod his entire career, whether it was playing the game or commenting on the game or now coaching the game. To think that you can't say something about Deion Sanders is because I don't know. I just thought that was a really bad take.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't believe that Venables is a racist. I do think it's weird, though.
Hey, for the record, Kevin Miller doesn't think Coach Venables is a racist. So thank you, Kevin, for clearing that up.
But hey, you asked. you brought it up. I do think it's weird, though, because coaches usually don't call out other coaches. And they certainly don't call out other coaches by name. They might drop hints. He could say, I'm not like other coaches who get rid of the whole team. He was like, I'm not like Deion. I'm like, whoa, bro.
Did he actually even say that?
I thought the quote did say Deion.
I think the Deion one was actually later on, and it was shown to be
the Deion quote was fake. The Deion quote in response, that was fake.
Yeah.
But the BV quote calling out Deion by name.
I don't know. I love it, dude. I like it when our coach gets a little fiery. So keep it up. Keep it up, coach. All right, real quick. TCU schedule. Houston. Let's rapid fire. Houston.
When?
West Virginia.
When?
Iowa State.
No Deckers, it's a win.
Yeah, it's a win. BYU.
When it's in Fort Worth.
K-State, loss.
Loss, yeah.
Texas Tech, loss.
Loss, yeah.
Texas.
Loss.
Baylor.
Close win.
Oklahoma.
Loss.
So they're 5-4. You got TCU at 5-4. That's interesting.
It's just weird, man. I think just some of these games are going to go in ways we just don't expect them to. There's going to be close games. I just don't think there's a ton separating.
No, I mean, we're talking one game. The other two teams we're talking about we're talking about one game.
Correct.
My last one, Baylor, bringing back Coach Dave Aranda. Their defense was terrible last year, which is not what you expect from a Dave Aranda coach team.
Not at all.
He fired his defensive coordinator before the bowl game, hired Matt Prolich, who was the co-defensive coordinator at Oregon, and I guess previously on his staff, maybe.
Okay.
Is that right? They returned 7 offensive starters, 5 defensive starters. Blake Shapen is their returning quarterback. There's concern there, but also room for improvement. The running backs is by far their best position. They had a couple studs there.
They did. Young ones.
They ran all over Oklahoma. I think they're going to be better defensively because it's hard to be as bad as they were. But the big bugaboo for Baylor this year, even despite any kind of improvement they show, is that they're going to have the 20th most difficult schedule nationally. Non-con, 2 wins, and they play Utah, which I think will probably be a loss. But again,
I think so too. Cameron Rising is back.
Yeah, that's their measuring stick game. So they play Texas, loss, UCF win, Texas Tech loss, Cincy win, Iowa State win, Houston win, K-State loss, TCU win, where you and I differ, West Virginia, they win. I got them at 6-3. So I don't know. I have more faith in Aranda and Baylor. I don't know. Do you think I'm a little high on that win total?
No. I believe in Aranda's ability to put a good defense on the field. He may have to get involved more on that side of the ball. That's what he does. I just don't know how good Shapen is. I still don't know. They chose him over the other kid they had the year before that. Remember that? They named him the starter, and the other kid, was it the Gary Bohannon? Remember him?
Yep.
They named Shapen the starter before the season. Bohannon transferred. And, man, I don't know how good he is. I have no idea.
I think I think to me, Baylor and TCU are – I think Texas Tech and K-State are by far the biggest challengers. I just wanted to be able to give our listeners a little kind of broader view of the Big 12. If you look at the rest of the Big 12, I'm having a hard time finding anybody. I don't love going much below those teams. I don't think.
Let me ask you this though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because last year, none of us thought TCU was going to beat. I did pick them to beat Texas. I just want to say that for the record. I thought they would beat Texas before the season started. But no one thought that they would be the team that they ended up. Is there a team in this conference that we're overlooking and
no,
that is going to maybe shock everybody?
No, I think that they were in a unique situation, right? I think they had a 5-year starter at quarterback, or at least a 5-year player. I think they had a really good offensive coordinator and a collection of talent that they had done a really good job of building up on, and all building to that year. I think they capitalized on their super senior COVID players and all of that to really have a really nice roster. And they had the benefit of a down Oklahoma, maybe yes or no on a down. I don't know, kind of a down Texas, not a dominant Texas team. Let's just put it that way.
Correct. Yeah, for sure.
Baylor was down, even though Baylor almost beat them. So I just think they had a really and you said it too, a little bit of luck. I think TCU was in a unique. It was the unique kind of position that they took advantage of. All credit to them for taking advantage of it. But I don't see Oklahoma State doesn't have a 5-year starter at quarterback. UCF hasn't played this level of competition. Maybe Kansas, I guess. It's hard to make that leap. Like, I think Kansas will have some upset wins. I think Jaden Daniels is a nice player. But I mean, they're not going to go 7-2 in conference. Like, they don't have 7 wins in them in the Big 12. I don't think. ISU, we just found out their quarterback's most likely gone. BYU, Houston, Cincinnati, West Virginia. No, I don't think so. But maybe I'll be surprised, but I don't think so.
You never know.
Do you?
Nah, I mean, there's nobody I can pick, man. I would be stunned if any of these teams make that kind of run.
Which I guess is the whole point, right? I mean, we were stunned when TCU did it, but I just looking back on it, saying it out loud, looking at all those factors, it's like, oh, we should have seen it. Like, we should have. It's not like, oh my gosh, they were just suddenly good. It's like, no, there were factors there that we should have seen.
Yeah, and like you said, they had the talent. And I think the new head coach, new face, new voice in charge with Sonny Dykes and his staff, I think it maybe just re-energized everybody,
Yeah, and he coached his tail off, dude.
He did.
I did not give
Man, he can really work the refs. Remember we talked about that?
Oh, dude.
Man, he's good at that.
In that Texas game, he was destroying the refs.
Yeah.
I did not give him the credit in the OU TCU preview last year. I kind of said that he was just kind of a journeyman coach, but I think he really took advantage of it. Speaking of things that people need to take advantage of, Brown O'Haver is the title sponsor of the Boomer Bevo podcast. They are public insurance adjusters working for the insured, not the insurance company. I work for Brown O'Haver. Kevin works for Brown O'Haver. It's our goal to get clients more money on their insurance claim and get it more quickly than if they were to do it themselves. So give Brown O'Haver a call, 405-735-5510. Check us out online. Check us out on Facebook. Check us out on X. Check us out on wherever you get your socials and see how Brown O'Haver can help you if you've had a loss to your property. Kevin, we haven't even talked about this. Colorado to the Big 12, in 2024. It's rumored pretty significantly that Arizona's already made the deal. They're already coming. And they're expecting ASU to potentially follow and maybe even Utah. What do you think about this revamped Big 12?
I actually like it.
You liked it before.
I did. I just don't understand why they weren't proactive like this when OU and Texas were members. Why were they content with having 10 teams?
Because they were getting an even split of the revenue.
Yeah.
They were getting an even split of the revenue, and they didn't want to split. They didn't want to add 2 more teams to dilute their split. And Oklahoma and Texas were big enough brands that they were moving the needle. So when Oklahoma and Texas leave, their splits obviously went tremendously down because they're not going to get paid, and so they have to add more teams to increase the value and to hopefully make their split a little larger. So it's all money driven. They didn't want to give it up. But you're exactly right. Now, here's the only thing I'm going to say though, right? I like the addition. I liked the 2023 additions: BYU, Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston. I actually think those are pretty decent football additions. Colorado, Arizona State. We're not talking about football powerhouses. I mean, I think combined they were like 9-60 against Power 5 opponents over the last 2 or 3 years. So from a football standpoint, I think it's good for like a conference stability. But from a football standpoint, I'm not exactly thrilled. Maybe if they get Utah, that might change my mind a little bit.
Yeah.
But I've warned you on this podcast. I don't think BYU wants any part of Utah in the Big 12. I think BYU, if they have any kind of deciding vote, they are. If you want to know who's petty, BYU and Utah have a petty rivalry. It's interesting, right? Oklahoma and Texas, as fan bases, we hate each other. Like, I hate Texas. I replay the hate rant from OU Texas week last. I mean, I can't stand you guys. It's amazing I can even stomach a podcast this long.
Likewise.
But we know what's good is for the goose is good for the other goose. Like, we know that our fortunes are linked together. Our destinies are linked together because with each other, we make each other better. We are a better brand. OU, Texas, Texas, OU, they're a better brand together. BYU and Utah have none of that. They don't give a rip about that other school. And they would, because BYU didn't get invited to the Pac-12, right? And so I could see BYU going, oh, you didn't invite us to the Pac-12. We're not letting you in the Big 12. I think that's a real thing. Now, I could end up being proven wrong, but I don't think the Utah rumors are as nearly as active as the Arizona and Arizona State.
Yeah, I agree. I think, but I don't know, man. But I'm hearing that this Pac-12 not even having a TV deal after this season. How is that possible?
Well, now what they announced was a deal with ESPN, but half of the games are going to be available on Apple TV. The other half of the games.
That's a lot, man. I don't know how that's going to fly, even with the Pac-12 fan base.
I want to make sure I give credit to this take. This is not a John Whitson take. This is a Barry Trammell take, who's an old-time fantastic reporter for the Daily Oklahoman. Yeah, for the Oklahoman.
He does a great job.
Yeah, he's fantastic. And so I was listening to him on the radio today, and he said, the problem with the Pac-12 was they put all their eggs in the Pac-12 network, which was a subscription package. And then they didn't sell subscriptions. And now they're putting their eggs into iTunes or Apple TV, which again is a subscription package. And it's just not likely that, if they didn't do it for the Pac-12 network, maybe because more people just automatically have Apple TV, it's not a guarantee they're going to do it for Apple TV. And especially if you don't have USC and UCLA.
Oh my goodness, I know.
Yeah.
It just doesn't look good.
Look, dude, I don't even I scam Apple TV off of my niece. You know what I'm saying? If they just I don't see myself getting it anytime soon for the Pac-12. So yeah, I agree with you. The TV deal is a weird deal. I don't know what the Pac-12 is doing. They have lost their minds. I think the Big 12 is good to jump on these guys. I just don't think the quality of football team is anything to get fired up about.
Yeah, Arizona is great for basketball. That's elite basketball to compete with Kansas. I think that's going to be incredible.
Is Arizona a blue blood basketball school?
I think they are. Yeah.
I think they've been really good, dude, especially for us who grew up in the 90s with was that Bibby?
Yeah, Bibby and Miles Simon on that team.
Miles Simon, man, that team was so good, dude.
Had some studs, man.
And they've been good for a long. Yeah, they've been good for a long time.
Richard Jefferson.
Yeah. You don't have to tell me, dude. Yeah, no, I love those Arizona teams.
It started with Steve Kerr and Sean Elliott in the late 80s.
Yeah, Oklahoma beat them in the Final Four. So 1988, let that sink in. Oklahoma, winningest program in basketball in the 1980s.
It's pretty impressive, man.
Yeah, without a national championship. Thanks a lot.
That's what sucks.
Thanks a lot, Danny Manning. Other changes, just real quick. I find this conference realignment thing just there are teams now that I didn't even know were in different conferences. So I just want to give everybody out there, all of our listeners, just a very quick, here's what conferences look like now. So the American Conference added 6 new members. They've added two ECU, Navy, Tulane, and Tulsa were already in the American Conference. They've added Charlotte, FAU, North Texas, Rice, UAB, and UTSA. All right, that's your American Conference. The Conference USA has added 4 new teams. Jacksonville State, which they need to be thinking prime for that move, right? Clearly. Liberty, who was a previous independent. New Mexico State, who is an independent. And Sam Houston, who was another FCS school, are now Conference USA. And then Sunbelt last year actually added Marshall, Old Dominion, Southern Miss, and James Madison. So The conference realignment thing is by no means finished. The other rumors, Kevin, included Florida State. And when I first heard that, I was thinking, well, that they must be coming to the SEC and maybe with Clemson. But I'm now hearing Big Ten.
Yeah, the Big Ten. I mean, I'm looking at this article from the Tallahassee Democrat, their town newspaper, saying how there's a board of trustees meeting that's supposed to take place tomorrow. So now there's nothing about them leaving the ACC on the agenda, but the timing seems curious. If they're looking to depart, they would need to let them know by August 15th. So it's very interesting, man.
That is just not. I mean, dude, listen. I know the Big Ten.
You got USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten.
No, so I know. I know, but it's just so weird to think that Florida State would have to fly over the SEC, to play all their games. I don't know. Now, I mean, I think that would elevate. You had Florida State and Clemson, and I think
we're right
the Big
here,
Ten is
SEC
instantly on. Right now, I think the SEC is a little bit ahead.
Yeah,
but you had those two schools, and dude, now all of a sudden,
remember they got USC now and UCLA next year.
I know, it's unbelievable, dude. So it's going to be fascinating to see. And if they lose those, does the ACC just fold up tent and go play basketball? Is that what they do?
Yeah, you would think so, right?
You know what I mean?
I'm curious though. We talked about USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten. Is that effectively what happens with the Rose Bowl? What happens with that? Right? I mean, are we going to be seeing USC playing against Arizona State or USC against Washington in the Rose Bowl?
Yeah, I don't know. USC. Like, what's the conference tie-in going to be? I mean, they've always been, to your point, they've been the most traditional of any bowl game. I mean, they've maintained an iron fist on a Big Ten, Pac-12 matchup. Only a college playoff has been able to switch that up at times. So I don't know, man, because it almost, if Arizona and Arizona State were to leave, if you're the Rose Bowl, I mean, you're almost thinking Big Ten, Big 12 matchup.
Yeah, Big 10, Big 12, or Big 10 SEC.
Well,
right. Get in on that.
And the school we've left out in all of this is Oregon.
Yeah,
Oregon they're not a blue blood, but they're in the next tier. They're in the next tier, though.
Yeah, and they're a pretty good basketball school too, right? They've got a good athletic program all around.
And then a darker horse, but who's historically been a good team and a good program in other sports is Washington.
Yeah.
So I feel like those two schools, it's like if the Big Ten is looking at Florida State and maybe Clemson, are they looking at Oregon and Washington also? I mean, it just seems
the Big 12 or the Big 10?
The Big 10 more than the Big 12, I would think, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, how big are these conferences going to be? Right? We'll be at 16 in the SEC with Texas and OU there next year. 16 already.
Well, I mean, at this rate, we're going to have 3 power conferences. I mean, we're going to have, if the dominoes were to fall with Florida State, I mean, listen, dude, the Pac-12 outside of Oregon and Utah, there's nothing. And if they were to lose Arizona and Arizona State, they almost have to fold. What, they got like a 16 conference, 18 conference?
Yeah, I mean,
crazy.
It just happens with like Stanford, right? I mean, it's so bizarre. All of this is crazy, man. Because these things have been pretty much the same. We've had a couple teams leave here and there and go to conferences that at least geographically make sense, right? Like Arkansas leaving the Southwestern Conference to go to the SEC from a geographic standpoint. It makes sense, right? Texas A&M going to the SEC. But now it's just like, it just doesn't even matter. I mean, we got USC in the Big Ten. The Big Ten was always the Midwest. A couple East Coast schools mixed in. Even Penn State is Western Pennsylvania. It's just so weird, man.
But don't forget, you got Maryland. I mean, there could be you could be a scenario where Maryland plays USC. I mean, and that just seems
And then it's a conference
in a conference game.
How about USC and Rutgers?
Yeah, well, Rutgers is terrible.
I mean, they are, but I mean, I'm talking about from a geographical standpoint.
Yeah,
a conference game with a
3,000 miles
away.
Flight. Yeah, 3,000 miles away. Absolutely. In other news, Oklahoma coaches had press availability today. I think Texas coaches did too. Oklahoma head coach Brent Venables' wife was diagnosed with breast cancer and had surgery last Friday. So Boomer Bevo prayers are out for her that she
absolutely
all the tests come back as good as possible, so she doesn't have to do chemo or radiation or anything. We talked about this off air. It's just you hear something like that, and you just are reminded that they're like real people. We forget that, and I'm going to forget that the minute like we lose a big recruit or something. So I'm not saying like I've suddenly changed as a human, but it's it's not a nice reminder. It's a solemn reminder. It's a solemn reminder that they're real people going through real stuff. You know what I mean?
For sure.
But anyway, thoughts and prayers.
Sending prayers for Coach Venables and his wife.
Did Sark say anything at the press conference today?
The best thing, he's talking about the expectations that they're being high. He sounds like they're embracing that. And
I saw he's embracing the hate.
Yeah, and I've been saying this for years. I've been saying on this. Stop trying to just accept the fact that everybody hates you. Just use it as motivation. I think it's a great motivation. We kind of compared it to the Miami Heat, right? When they had LeBron and D Wade and Chris Bosh, and everybody hated them, and they didn't seem to like it. I'm like, dude, like you should embrace that. Use it as fuel. I think it's awesome. We need villains.
Dude, well, first of all, y'all are an easy villain. You're an easy villain with all the money and the lack of success over the last 10 or 15 years. Y'all are an easy villain.
Hey, we'll take it, man.
But I think you've got to embrace the black hat mentality.
Yeah.
And it was impossible for Mac. Mac can't do it. Mac doesn't have a black. I thought Herman was your best chance at embracing that black hat mentality.
He was a little too over the top with it.
But he was too much. Yeah, he was an idiot. Yeah, we've talked about Herman. I mean,
not a bad coach at all. Just incredibly unlikable.
Incredibly unlikable. Oh man, I was gonna say something just fantastic for you. God, my mind went blank on how I was gonna end that. What else you got for us, Kevin?
Well, also he said that everybody's healthy. Everybody's gonna be available to practice, which I'm excited about, especially the receiver Isaiah Nayor, who was a transfer from Wyoming. He was there last year. He blew out his knee in training camp last year. So apparently he's fully cleared and ready to go. I'm excited to see how he looks.
I know what I was going to say when you brought up the Heat. What about LeBron James's kid, man? Was that nuts?
Oh, man, it was horrifying. A cardiac arrest?
What is happening?
No clue, man. No clue.
I hate to hear it. Y'all, dude, listen, the Boomer Bevo podcast fans know I am no fan of LeBron James. I think he is probably the 8th best player in NBA history, and that's
second.
It's probably maybe being generous, Kevin.
Second.
I think you can agree with me on that.
He's second. But go ahead.
I think if you went, I think you could go Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Wilt Chamberlain. I like Kobe better than him.
No way. And I love
Carl,
Kobe, but no way.
No way on Kobe?
No way. No.
Who's that? Did you think I was going to say?
Karl Malone. I was take out of here.
I can't go. I can't go.
Just say, come on, man.
I can't go to Karl Malone, but Bill Russell, who apparently you hate Bill Russell. Apparently Kevin Miller thinks Bill Russell is some kind of just terrible person, terrible basketball player. You refuse to watch what I think is potentially the greatest sports documentary of all time. I bet if they had one for LeBron, you'd be all over it. I bet you watched that one when he was playing in high school and you were just so giddy about it because you think LeBron is so great. Dude, I didn't watch that. LeBron isn't even – he might not even be in the top 10. He might not even be in the top 10.
And now you're just trolling. I get you don't like him. I get it. You don't have to like him. That's fine.
Well, let me tell you what, dude. Let me give you an example. I watched it. So the girls, we watched NBA Jam. It was on TV in the Mexico resort we went to.
You talking about Space Jam?
Yes, I'm sorry. What did I say? Yeah, Space Jam.
NBA Jam. Great.
Yeah. Great video game. Their heads would get big. Nobody could ever get the cheat code for Jordan. But anyway, so Space Jam was on, the new one.
Haven't seen it. But go ahead.
Well, I hadn't seen it either, but it was exactly what I would expect. It was just all goody-goody. LeBron's a good guy. Everybody loves LeBron, blah, 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 blah. Even Jordan had an edge to him in the original Space Jam. You know what I'm saying? Even Jordan had a little bit of like, no, I'm not going to lose to these jokers. Like, it's not going to happen. But LeBron's like, oh, well, whatever. You know, it's like, no, dude, I can't stand it. I don't know what it is about that guy. My thoughts and prayers go out to his son, but I cannot stand him on the basketball court. It drives me insane.
Wait. Okay, you can't send him on the court?
I don't like him on or off the court. Listen, dude.
Give me Larry Bird.
Give me Larry Bird. Give me Larry Joe Bird, the hick from French Lick, 3-time NBA MVP, 3-time NBA champion, rookie of the year, one of the biggest turnarounds in sports. Give me Larry Joe Bird. Had to go up against the Lakers, mind you. Give me Larry Joe Bird every day of the week. LeBron would wilt in the 80s. He would be a snowflake in the 80s. I don't even throw snowflake out very much. LeBron couldn't do it. He couldn't hang. He's
I'll say to that.
He's too fragile. He's too fragile.
Here's what I'll say to that.
He would be Sam Bowie in the 1980s.
When Jordan came into the NBA, right, and they used to push him around, foul him, right?
That's the Jordan
rules. He bulked up.
Yeah, Jordan rules.
So he bulked up to 220 pounds, and then they couldn't handle him going to the
athletic stud. Yeah, greatest of all time.
Okay, LeBron James came into the league at 6'8", 240.
He's the softest 6'8", 240 in the history of sports. The softest 6'8", 240.
Are going to be able to handle him in the 1980s? Dennis Rodman? Come on, man.
Wait a minute.
He's going to.
Are you telling me the Lakers, the Celtics, or the Pistons wouldn't have figured out a way to lay him on his ass? Because you were out of your mind. Those three teams played grown man basketball. They played grown man basketball. He hasn't been bodied up in 20 years.
They couldn't handle Jordan once he got up to 220.
They couldn't handle Jordan because they were old. Dude, he didn't start winning until the 90s. Like, don't even give me that. Give me that. They couldn't handle Jordan. The
Pistons were still good in the early 90s.
Yeah, after they had won 2, and it took him they had won 2 before he bulked up and everything. My point is, LeBron, no way, dude.
Some guys can play in every generation, and Jordan can play Jordan can play now. He'd be the best player in the league now. LeBron can play in the 80s. Yeah, no problem. He's just too athletically advanced.
He'd be a nice backup on the Knicks for sure.
On the Knicks.
He'd be a nice
come
player.
Off the bench for
Herb
Williams.
You know what? Yeah. Okay, that might have gone too. Do you remember what Dennis Rodman said about Larry Bird?
Oh, was that? Did Dennis Rodman say that?
Yeah.
A bunch of crap, man.
If he was a white guy, he'd be just another good player. LeBron would just be another good player in the league.
First of all, shout out. Don't take this to think that I don't love Larry Bird. Shout out to Larry Bird. But man, yeah. LeBron's court vision and unselfishness on the court is pretty much unrivaled.
Unselfish because he doesn't want the ball at the end. Larry Bird was a better. Larry Bird. Look at Larry Bird's stats. Look at Larry Bird's stat. You compare stat to stat for 10 years of their career. Take the 10 best years of their career, and you'll take Larry Bird's stats. I guarantee you. You looked at him blind, you'd take him.
No.
Oh my God.
We'll do a study. We'll bring this up.
This is the most contentious discussion we've had. Okay, listen, I bet I've been a little hyperbolic. I am telling you, Larry Bird's stats for 10 years. Not all. He had some bad years there, especially at the end of his career when he got old. Got to remember.
Yeah, no, I'm not considering the back injury.
Bird didn't come into the league, and Bird didn't come into the league until he was like 23, right? So LeBron's came in like 18. So Bird kind of almost had. Now maybe he needed that, maybe physical immaturity, blah blah blah. I get all that. I'm saying 10 years. They're 10 peak years. Just take a look at Bird's stats.
Okay.
Take a look at Bird's stats.
And I know you mentioned the 3 MVPs, and look, LeBron has 4 MVPs, 4 titles.
We have nobody. Who else? Yeah. Okay. 4 titles. 4 titles, and he. Oh, don't even get me going, dude. Don't even.
Look, Larry Bird lost in the finals too.
To the Lakers, to one of the greatest dynasties of all time. Yeah, that's who he lost to.
And the Warriors aren't?
Yeah, they're pretty good. Kevin, this went a little off the rails, but I'm here for it, dude. I loved every second of it. I loved every second of it.
Wait till the season preview goes at the Big 12, and we pick our winners of the Big 12.
We've got Texas preview coming up next. We be sure to listen, like, subscribe, share, follow us on X, wherever you get your podcasts. And Kevin will get Texas next week, or maybe not next week. We might do it sooner. We'll see. Well, I'm excited about football, so we might just keep throwing some content out there.
Let's go.
But hey, dude, this was fun. Have a great evening. Boomer.
You too. Hook 'em.